BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Hey, BJ O'Neill here with Business Coach Mastery with a 3-part episode all about 6 areas you need to focus on in 2024. Believe it or not, 2023, we are wrapping it up. We are saying goodbye here in the next couple of weeks. Regardless if you are listening to this in January or February of 2024, you're going to get some incredible value because everything that I'm going to discuss over this next 3-part episode is all about what and how you need to focus your time, effort, energy, the things you need to think about, how to engage with people, and so on. I want to tell you really quick. I get this question all the time, and perhaps you just found the podcast. Maybe you're listening on Apple or Google Play or watching on YouTube. Number one, it means a lot to us if you would subscribe. Certainly, if it's YouTube, subscribe and like. It helps others to find our message, and you're part of that message, and it matters in a big way. So if you're curious though about, how do I create, a business coaching practice for myself? Maybe you thought about that for a very long time. You don't know what that looks like. There's some information I'd love to give you. You can simply go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com. You'll see some information there. There's also a button if you'd like to find a time to talk about that. And I'll explain to you exactly what we do in giving seasoned Christian men a done-for-you 6-figure business coaching practice so that you can live life on your terms. I'm going to jump right in. 6 areas to focus on 2024. Before I get into the 6, I want to set this up. If you're considering becoming a coach, maybe you just started coaching, you're processing a while, I want to make sure that you're not missing some elements that are critical. Call them foundations if you want. Really, really important that you don't skip over some things. But we also have to remember that, look, this is when we're building a business coaching practice, we're not building, at least in the beginning, we're not a Fortune 500 company. We don't have 50 employees. And so the way that we would go out building our business coaching practice is different than you're going to build a traditional business, at least in the beginning. Now, you may say, well, why is that? Well, we're going to dig into that, and I'll explain why. But number one, you got to make sure that you have an entire, what I call a framework that is both created and one that's flexible enough that you're going to make edits along the journey. That's the little bit of the difference. When you have a team of 10 people, 15 people, it's a little bit more difficult to make edits on a consistent basis because it can come off like, man, you really don't know what you want, which that's not the case. But as we start a business coaching business, here's what you got to understand. There are things, let's just say that I'm going to start off January 1. Well, there's just things that you don't know yet that are going to show up in March and April and so on that are going to impact the way you do what you do. That's the reason why we talk about you want to make sure you have a framework, it's flexible and nimble, but you don't want to change too much too quick. That's kind of the balance that you're looking for to do this correctly, to really get to where you want to go. With that said, here's some things you have to think about that's inside the framework. You might say, BJ, when you say framework, what do you mean? Well, you can't just go out there and just start talking to people. You can't just go start, I just want to help businesses. And I get that that's what we do. But it doesn't work quite like that because if you don't have the right framework, people aren't going to know what you're about. They aren't going to know, what does he really do? And so on. So you have to answer that question. What are you about? Like, what do you want to be known as? Like in your community. And that word community could be, just in your local little, area, or it could be, the entire state you live in. Whatever the word community means to you, what's your prominence? Like when people think of you, if somebody met you right now at a networking event, if they met you through a friend or whatever, how would they describe you? Like, what would they describe you're about? And here's why this is important. It's not enough to just say you're a business coach. It's extremely vague and bland. You got to remember, most people don't understand what a business coach really is. And so just because you know what it is, and just because you've thought about doing this for a very long time, and just because you have a vision for the future, it doesn't mean that everyone understands exactly what it is that you want to do. So that's why creating this framework that just, it simply means that as I interact with the business community, that they're going to completely understand and know what I do, what I'm about, how I can help them, and how I can help solve their problems. If you haven't walked through a process to get clarity on all that, that's going to be friction. It's going to be a wall, and you're going to wonder why you're not getting the success that you're looking for and that you desire. Okay? What's your message? What is it that you're going to say? And while the elevator pitch by far is a part of your message, yes. But overall, like, what is your message you want to tell people? As a Christian business coach, it's one that you want to, that value matters, helping people get traction matters, helping people to, your whole ministry in the marketplace concept. What's that message really going to be? And so you're going to want to put that into some type of paragraph form. And for now, it's kind of much about you and for you only, for your eyes only. But that's what's going to help frame your activity, how you're going to interact with others, what you're going to say, and certainly how people are going to feel when they walk away from you after you have connected with them, okay? It's critical, and we're going to talk about branding, your personal brand in one of the other parts, but you can't be vague, and you've got to create uniqueness. Now, in our business coaching system, when we're interacting with business owners, we talk about uniqueness. Matter of fact, we specifically, as a strategy, one of the things that we do, we talk about creating a market-dominating position. It just simply means, what would I do? How would I be set up? What would my view be from others? How would they see me, interact with me, and what would they think for them to say, man, I'd be crazy not to do business with you? What would that be? And when I say strategy, one of the things that we do in our system is that we strategically work with businesses in a step-by-step manner to help them find small incremental percentage through multiple business strategies. Well, being uniqueness is one of those strategies. So let's turn that around for us as coaches. If I were to ask you the question, what is it that makes you so unique, that just makes you stand out amongst the crowd? And when I say stand out, I don't mean just only against other business coaches. Because here's what you have to understand. As you're building relationships, as you're building value with the business community and those that you're networking with through all the different channels, which we're going to talk about how to do that, you have to understand that the business owners are incredibly overwhelmed and busy. That's a part of your framework. I have to understand that this statement I'm going to give you is a really good one to put in your framework, that I help overwhelmed business owners. That helps you to always be clear because I understand they're overwhelmed. Here's one of the reasons why they're overwhelmed. Number one, their doors getting knocked on, their phones getting rung off the wall, text messages, emails galore on everybody under the moon trying to sell them something. Point of sale systems, payroll services, insurance, alarms, 401k plans, real estate transactions. If people maybe want to buy their building or offer a new space for them to lease. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And so that sense of understanding and the whole, if you consider, if you follow all the 7 habits of highly effective people, one of those principles is to seek first to understand. So when we're understanding that business owner and the overwhelm that they have and understand that so many people are trying to sell them in a transactional way, then just being viewed as a business coach is not going to cut it. As a matter of fact, it may even hurt you. What do you mean? I want to be a business coach. It's just about how you stand out and how you're presented. So as a part of your framework, part of your, you want to have your message. You want to understand what, creates your attractive character. Helping overwhelmed business owners certainly is one of those. Being viewed as a strategist, I would argue, is incredibly important, and if not even a way to do that as a part of your framework. And that's going to help shape your message, the conversations that you have, how you approach people, and so on. You're like, BJ, you've not even gotten to any of the 6 areas. Correct. Because you have to have foundational roots that forms who you are, how you're viewed, how you're remembered when you get off the phone, the email you send, you leave the networking event or the lunch or the coffee or whatever, and how people are going to truly desire, I want to know more about them. That puts you in the position to becoming the hunted. How about that? All right. So there's your framework. You got to have your framework, right? Number two, or I won't say number two, an additional thought to understand. In the beginning, you got to make sure that as you're building everything I just said, your framework, what you're going to do and all that, you really need to make sure that you're laser light focused on your activity on get client number 1 and number 2. This is really, really critical. Because if you spend too much time in idea motion, idea phase, your long-term goals, which we're going to talk about that, you do have to have long-term goals. But if you don't have clarity on how to get to some quick wins, you're going to take a lot longer. It's going to be harder. It's going to be like you're walking up a mountain, carrying an entire bag of boulders. And so as you're building your plan, make sure your activity in the first absolute 90 days plus, probably even the first, call it 4 months, it's got to make sure that you're addressing how I'm going to get client number 1 and client number 2. We'll call it the low-hanging fruit. In most cases, it's usually in your sphere of influence. And it doesn't mean that your next and first client is somebody you already know. But the people that you know people. That's just a little tidbit. But bigger than that, we're not going to get bogged down into how to get clients today and in this episode. But the bigger purpose is whatever activities, because everybody's world's totally different. All of the activities that you can do to build a business coaching practice, they all work. Whether your skill sets are the right fit, your desire, those are the things that you have to figure out. Okay? So all of your activity, you want to make sure that is pointed and laser light focus in getting clients number 1, client number 2. You want quick wins. You'll want to get excited and you want to get the ball rolling. You don't want to spend 6 months with no clients because it just makes it difficult. And then you want to begin to build your short, mid, and long-term goals. Just very clean like this. In 12 months, remember, we're starting this, in this case, this episode, in this 3-part series. We're going to start it on January 1, just for conversation. So by December 31st, what is it realistically, with some stretch in it, that I want to accomplish? 5 clients, $300,000. What's that number? You need to figure out what that looks like to begin to, and just remember, I'm going to make some adjustments. So, again, focusing on the new year in 2024, what do I want to achieve for the year in economics? In other words, the financial side of things on what I want to earn, and when do I want to do that? If you follow Grant Cardone, whether you like him or not, that's up to you, or you agree with him. The one thing that I do understand that I think has power to it is when you think about the whole 10x concept. If you don't know who he is, don't worry about it. It's just all about 10xing your goals. And some have, argued, man, that's just kind of, you're doing a lot of work for nothing, blah, 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 blah. That's not true. Think about it this way. If I'm starting out January 1, the very beginning, and by the end of December 2021, I just want to earn $120,000 a year as a coach. If that was your goal. Well, what if you were to make your goal, 150 or 200,000? Well, BJ Allen want 120. That's right. But if you stretch yourself, which goal do you want to miss? The one that says I want to achieve 200,000 or the one that says I want to achieve 120,000? Because if your goal is 120,000, I'm telling you on paper, it needs to be higher than that and your activities need to be greater than that to be able to actually achieve the 120. Because you don't know what you don't know. You are going to experience things that you just, they're going to impact everything that you do. And so by setting higher measures, higher activity goals, doing more than what's required, you stand a much greater chance of actually achieving them. So you want to set, number 1, your 12-month target. And then you're going to break that 12-month target down into quarters. And, if it's 100, and it's usually numerics, right? What's the number I want to be? How much am I going to charge? And how many clients is that going to look like? What's that going to look like? It's not rocket science at the end of the day. There is a numeric process to this. That's the reason why this first part is all about the foundational principles so that you can actually focus on your activities and the things that you have to do for the year. So you want to make sure that you understand that you have a 1-year plan broken down into those 4 quarters. And then you're going to begin to build your rocks, which is the activities inside each quarter. Make it simple. Too many people make things difficult. Well, BJ, what about after the first year? Here's what I've discovered. Worry about that about 6 months into it as you begin to build a longer term plan. Your visions and your missions, which we're going to talk about in the next part, you're going to work that as we go. And because if you spend 90 days just working on all this alone, do what you want. I just don't advise it because it's going to impact your energy. It's going to impact your emotions. It's going to impact your enthusiasm. It's going to impact all of it. And it will absolutely curb your activity level. And that's why a lot of this you can do as you go. All right, so this first part, hopefully you got the message. What are you about? What is your message? How are you going to build your framework around that? The things, how you're going to interact with people, what you're going to say about who you are and what you do. How will you be remembered? How do you have clarity on all that? Once you do that, you want to make sure you write it down. And you want to put that written framework, those ideas, who you are, how you're going to interact, what you're going to do about, client number 1 and 2, getting clarity on your first 12 months. You want to write it down somewhere and you want to have it in a place where you're going to literally read it every single day. Every day. Because the more you read it, the more you believe it, the more it's going to help you to, on the days that you don't want to do anything, you're going to be much more charged and energized to actually go do something because you're getting clarity because you are reciting. Repetition is the bedrock of mastery. Repetition is the bedrock of mastery. That's why you want to make sure that you got clarity. Because if you just build all this and you just kind of put it in the file and you just move on and you're just kind of, over here doing this one day over here, that's what's going to happen. Because what's going to happen, or what tends to happen, you're starting to recite what it is, your clarity, your message, you're several weeks into it, and you're like, actually, the more I've thought about it, I'm thinking this. I think it should look like that. Great. That's what being flexible is all about. And that's why you want to read it all the time. Because if you put it away for 90 days and you bring it back out, it's going to feel so foreign to you. And you will have spent a ton of activity doing things that has no connection to what you actually want to accomplish. All right, that's part 1. That's the foundations. Part 2 and 3, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the areas you need to focus on. Prayerfully, I've added some value to you today, helping you think at a level that maybe you haven't thought about before. If you want to talk about any of this at any time, and I really want to do this, hit me up. Go to businesscoachmastery.com and we'll connect. Until next time, take care.